Hey, YouTube, what is going on? It's the one and only Avenger, aka the Black Azrael, Lee Sanders. Long time no see from you guys. I'm tearing it up doing the podcasting thing. So if you guys aren't checking out the podcast, which airs Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, over on Spreaker.com, make sure that you go out of your way to check out the show as we have a little bit of fun talking about all things. So, hey, if it's got you talking, I'm definitely talking about it. And of course, if you can't check out the show live, you can always scoop it up on the downloads on great platforms. All the information you need is down in this video description below in the synopsis. So make sure you check it out when you guys get a chance. But I'm back on here with another cool kick-ass album review. As this go round, we are talking about the 11th studio album from one of my favorite rock bands of all time, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. This is titled The Getaway. Now, this album is a follow-up to 2011's I Am With You, and this album also marks the very first time in a long time that they decided, the Red Hot Chili Peppers members, that is, that they decided to go with a different producer. This is the first time in 25 years that this has happened, as their longtime producer has been Rick Rubin. And for that 25 years, Rick Rubin basically has to show for six well produced, well executed Red Hot Chili Pepper albums. And I was a little bit bummed out when I had first found out that the band decided that they were going to go in a different direction, but I totally understood the reason why they wanted to go with a new producer, and they would get that new producer in Danger Mouse, who has just year after year continued to build an impressive resume for himself as a producer. I mean, some of the biggest acts that he's gotten the opportunity to work with so far, produce songs, produce albums for: Norah Jones, the Gorillaz, the Black Keys, U2, just to name a few, but an extensive background as a producer. They decided to work with him, and this was a case where it was nice for the band to be able to shake things up from a production standpoint, because they had to continue the great role of momentum that they had been able to maintain. They had hooked up with their new guitarist, and John Klinghoffer, hopefully Josh, I apologize, Josh Klinghoffer. It's going to take me a while to get used to John, but I'm telling you, I said it again. Josh. It's Josh who is replacing John. Oh God, I've never been able to pronounce John's name right, so I apologize in advance. Long time Red Hot Chili Pepper fans, but Josh is the replacement for John Frusciante. Hopefully, I did that last name justice. But I tell you what, I'm really starting to come around to Josh. I thought he had one impressive debut on 2011's I'm With You. I kind of felt like he wasn't quite, I won't say gelling with the band, but I just kind of felt as though, okay, well, this is a good introduction, but let's see how he really breaks in with the band on the next album, once he's gotten all the touring and he's pretty much been out there with the band for a good couple of years. Let's see how the next studio album works. And I've got to tell you, with this new Getaway album, the band as a whole, and a lot of credit goes to Danger Mouse. I will say this, for those of you that's a little bit like, okay, what's the deal with Danger Mouse? Like, how much of a dramatic departure did he have the Red Hot Chili Peppers do for this album when compared to the last album, or just any Rick Rubin produced album? I would have to say there's a lot of elements that he borrowed from Rick Rubin, but you can kind of tell as you're listening to this that Danger Mouse was heavily influenced by Rubin, but at the same time, it was almost kind of like, okay, I'm going to take some of these things that Rubin did, and I'm just going to kind of jazz it up a little bit. It almost feels like a Rick Rubinish production, but it's got like, I think the best way I can describe it, it has a young zest energy vibe to it. And those of you that at this point have probably listened to the album by now, I think you all can be in agreement with me to an extent on what I'm talking about there. This album had dropped today, by the way, for Friday, June 17th. So we're pretty much talking about this album right now for you guys. For me, and I've been a long time Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, this album to date, commercially, has to be one of the most artistic, the most subtle, most intimate album that I've come across from the Chili Peppers to date. This was a very precise, a very well tight album. It's really showing their age, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It's just really kind of, in my eyes at least, as I was listening to all the tracks, they really are showing their age and experience with this album in the way that they were able to execute this. A lot of focus on melodies, a lot of focus on the lyrics on this one. Very, very precise, uh, creatively, just intellectually, spiritually, one of the most grab at you albums from them that I've come across in a very long time. So much so that after I got done listening to this album, I just couldn't help but kind of go, my God, these guys feel like they have reached their like maximum peak. How exactly are they going to be able to top this one? Can they top this one? And I tell you what, when I was listening to 2011's I'm With You, I'm kind of like, okay, this was really good. Can they keep it going? I'm like, yeah, they can keep it going. But when I compare this album, The Getaway, to that last effort, it's kind of like, man, they blew that last album just out of the water. This one, they just really came into their own. A very mature album, I've got to say. Got a little bit, I couldn't help it when I was listening to this. It had elements of the Mars Volta. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with that band, but um, and I know that there's probably going to be hardcore fans that's going to say, yeah, but that's always kind of like a running gag. They've always been kind of like, if you listen to them, it's got a little, no, something about this particular album and just the way it was executed. I just couldn't help but kind of think about Mars Volta a lot, but at the same time, this was one of those type of albums where, if you're looking for some type of all balls out, jamming session, you're not really gonna find that. The thing about this album, it wasn't heavy on, okay, here's your instrumental, because you know how most bands like to do it. They got to make sure they give love to the drummer, the guitarist, or anything, other band members, and all that. That wasn't the case with this band, and the way that each track was approached from a production standpoint, and a lot of credit goes to Danger Mouse once again. Very concise, very particular. None of the tracks felt out of order. Not to say that it kind of felt as though like you were listening to something that maybe should have been a B-side or something like that, but everything was just, it almost kind of felt like maybe you were listening to a concept album. That's how well tight, how well knit of a production this album was. And for you fans that became big fans of Josh Klinghoffer, you would like be ecstatic to know that for this album, just creatively, musically, he really came into his own on this one. He's kind of a little bit more, I don't want to say he's a little bit more in the backdrop, a little bit more in the background, because that would be a disservice to him. But you almost kind of feel like that when you're listening to particular tracks. But overall, I thought he did a really good job. He's really shown that between 2011 to now. Now, granted, he had been touring and helping out the band a couple of years prior to officially joining the band, so he always had that music relationship with the other Chili members. But it just seems like once he officially joined the band, and you go from 2011 to when that last album was put out to now, it just really seems like he's really come into his own. And it's great how the other members, definitely showing their age, are able to just bounce off of this young big ball of youth. And it's a great shot of youth adrenaline, let me tell you. Some of the tracks that really stand out to me for this particular album, and I got to look at my notes here. Overall, the entire album kicks major ass. I have to say, to be brutally honest, to the point, I had a really hard time cherry picking particular songs that I felt like, because overall this album was just wow. And I'm curious to know if there was any B-sides, any outtakes, something that didn't get a chance to make it to the album. You know, we usually hear about it a couple of months later with these Red Hot Chili Pepper albums. And of course, the new concept you got nowadays is you got bands that will release new or original or unreleased stuff on record label day. And I am well aware, for those of you hardcore Red Hot Chili Pepper fans, of the I'm Beside You album. And for those of you that are like, huh, what? Now, if you want to get technical, if you want to get technical, this Getaway album is technically the 12th album. And the reason why it would be their 12th album is because there was an album called I'm Beside You that was basically a companion piece to I'm With You. This album, it basically had a lot of B-sides, a lot of outtakes that didn't make it to I'm With You, and it was released on record label day. So if you don't know about that album, go check it out when you guys get a chance. So if you want to get technical, yeah, this would be their 12th studio album, but just for the sake of the argument, let's just call it their 11th studio album, okay? But hard time picking out particular tracks that I like. I love how things had opened up with The Getaway. The great open. I'm sure by now many of you guys had heard that particular track, as that was one of a couple of tracks that was released early, which you were able to download and secure if you had pre-ordered the album. Probably one of just a handful of tracks from this album that I really, really, really gravitated towards a lot. Dark Necessities. I just thought, creatively to date, this was one of the most well produced, well written songs from the Chili Peppers. Dark Necessities. That's like my number one out of the whole entire album. That was a pretty good track as well. Longest Wave, really like that one. Another standout track, I gotta go with Go Robot. That's another one, musically, creatively, bit of a nice, I won't say pop it had a nice funk feel to it. I love the lyrics, very playful with the lyrics. It almost kind of sounded like a romantic song gone wrong, somewhat, for some reason. And you guys that have heard the album, if you listen to this particular track, you're almost kind of thinking, as though as you're listening to it and you're trying to picture the lyrics in your head, that um, maybe this woman that is being talked about by Anthony is having a little bit of too much fun with her robot. Wink, wink. I'll let you guys marinate on that one. That's just, go back and listen to it again if you didn't think that before, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. But Go Robot, another track creatively just kicked mega ass. Feasting on the Flowers, another great standout track. Really had enjoyed that one. Encore, The Hunter. Hunter was interesting. If I'm not mistaken, Hunter was one track where Josh had actually did the bass on that one, because I remember reading, as far as the production goes for this album, that when Flea had injured himself, there was it came at a really bad time, and Flea, he injured himself while snowboarding, so his arm was in a sling. He messed it up pretty bad. So the band, when they were getting ready to hook up with Danger Mouse, they had already like 20, 30 songs in the bank, and they were getting ready to take it into the studio and hash it out with Danger Mouse. And he was like, nah, leave those behind. Let's go into the studio. Let's start from scratch. Let's just start from the beginning. And so they did that. And it took a while as they were waiting for Flea to fully make a recovery and all of that. But if I'm not mistaken, The Hunter was a track, as far as the bass goes, that Josh actually had did the bass. Also, I want to give you guys a heads up, and I got to make sure I show this track some love. Sick Love. We had a guest appearance from Elton John on piano. That was another one that was a really good standout track as well. Dreams of a Samurai, a great. Now, for those of you that's like, where's the jam session? Because I know a lot of you big Chili Pepper fans, you like those jam sessions. This is the only track where you're really gonna find a jam session, and that's in Dreams of a Samurai. It is about 6 minutes long. Great jam out session. Really, really great jam out. Great way to pretty much close out this entire album. But I would have to say, this album, there's not really that many albums that really jump out at me so far this year. That was like, okay, I gotta go check this out. But I tell you, Red Hot Chili Peppers, they delivered another classic right here. I think they did very well, extremely well, hooking up with Danger Mouse, to the point I actually would love to see another joint effort by these two entities again. So it can be another 5, 6 years for all I care. But I definitely would love to see these guys. I think this is a new match made in heaven, so to speak. I'm much more curious how a lot of these tracks are going to sound when the band goes out to perform them live on tour, which they are on tour right now. So check out their website to see if they're going to be coming to a nearby city. But don't take my word for it as far as the review that I gave putting this album over. I mean, you got All Music, Classic Rock, Rolling Stone. They all favorable, pretty solid reviews for this album. But again, if there were some particular tracks, if I had to, overall, the whole album kicks ass. But if you were to just say to me straight up, Lee, I don't want to check out the whole album just yet. I want to whet my appetite just a little bit. What tracks would you recommend that I check out first? Definitely The Getaway, Dark Necessities, Go Robot. I'd also have to go with Sick Love. Let me see what else. Detroit was another solid one as well. I like Detroit. Dreams of a Samurai. I would recommend you guys check those tracks out. See what you think. I promise you in the rock. At some point, you were into the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You will definitely mess with this album, and trust me. After you get done listening to this one, if you haven't already backtracked, you'll definitely want to backtrack to check out some other great content that they did. So that's going to do it for now. For those of you that did check out this album, I'd love to hear from you guys. Of course, if you disagree with my interpretation, my review of this album, even more the reason why I want to hear from you. So make sure you post your comments down below. You can also interact with me on Twitter. Give me a follow as well. I'm at the RCWR Show. Facebook, Infinity One Productions. That's with an E, spell out one, Infinity One Productions. And hey, if it's your first time checking me out, welcome. Love to have you subscribe so you never miss out on some pretty solid content I do here on YouTube from time to time. But the place where you can definitely check me out regularly, you can check out my live podcast Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern on Spreaker.com. And like I said, if you can't join us live, all the links you need is down in the video description below on how you can check out the show on demand, on the downloads, on great listening platforms. If you enjoyed this review, definitely give it a thumbs up, especially if you're a big Red Hot Chili Pepper fan and you appreciate the review that I gave for this album. Even more the reason you should leave me that review. And that's going to do it. Until next go round, wishing all y'all to be safe. Most importantly, be kind to one another. Everybody, do take care.